and welcome to another episode of PINASimpleng Investments para sa ating OFWs or PISO. For this webinar, we will talk about mutual funds and unit investment trust funds. So we will talk about the differences of these funds and hopefully by the end of this episode, masasagot natin yung tanong na what is the right fund for me? I am Vanessa Galvez, an MBA graduate and a registered financial consultant, and I'm also part of the OFW Desk of FirstMetroSec. So last episode, we discussed about personal finance. We talked about the 3 steps towards financial freedom. So these are simple yet not so easy steps. So it is something that we need to be intentional about. So again, number 1 is we have to manage our debts. Number 2, we have to intentionally save to invest. And number 3 is we start early and we do not delay. Now, given that, we know na kailangan nating mag-invest. So for a first-timer like you, maybe ang tanong nyo ngayon, saan ba ako mag-i-invest? Ang daming options. So ano ba yung tamang investment para sa akin? So for beginners, there are 3 general options. Normally, it's a mutual fund, a unit investment trust fund or UITF, or a VUL. We'll try to generally differentiate these three investments. So mutual fund, UITF, and variable universal link or sometimes unit link, variable universal life or unit link product or VUL. So when we say mutual fund or UITF, it's pooled, pinagsama-sama. So para siyang cooperative. Pinagsama-sama yung contributions ng different individuals at yun yung gagamitin na pang-invest. Ang VUL, it's an insurance with an investment component. So dalawang parte siya. In terms of structure, halos pareho lang ang mutual fund and UITF. Ang kaibahan lang nila, ang mutual fund, it's called shares, NAV-PS, whereas yung UITF, it's NAV-PU or net asset value per unit. Ang difference din nito is that else, it's an insurance policy. Okay? In terms of regulator, pag mutual fund, SEC ang may hawak. Ang UITFs kaya usually offered to sa banks, it's under the BSP, while VUL, since it's an insurance, it's under the Insurance Commission. So magkakaiba sila ng rules. Ang pinaka-importanting part lang dito is that mutual funds and unit investment trust funds, when you invest in these investments, fully invested ka. Whereas when you invest in a VUL, may part na nakapasok sa policy, sa insurance, may part na nakapasok sa investments. And the key message here also is that if you want to build your wealth, yung income nyo, papalaguin nyo, you focus on investments. Whereas a VUL is still generally for protection. And usually, kapag VUL, meron ka ditong beneficiary. Diba? Normally, meron pa yung mga conditions. So if anything bad happens to you, you get 125% or plus, diba? May mga riders pa siya. So kapag mutual fund and unit investment trust fund, the benefits, the proceeds goes to the investor mismo. Now, sabi nga ni Sus Orman is that insurance needs insurance and investments need to be investments. That's the ideal thing to do. Wag po natin silang pagsamahin. Okay, so the only way for you to earn big in a VUL is something bad to happen to you, which of course we do not want. So for this episode, by the way, I don't have anything against VULs. I have a VUL and I got it 13 years ago, mainly because it's the cheapest insurance that you can get. Kasi nga, merong investment component. And part of the returns of that investment goes to paying the insurance policy. So if you are a head of the family, you have a dependent, kailangan nyo pong kumuha ng insurance for protection. But if you are after investments, then you go straight to investments. Okay? Now, so we focus on the risk-return relationship of the mutual funds and UITFs. So last episode, we discussed, we mentioned that the higher risk, the low risk, the lower the return. So we mentioned money market, savings, and time deposits. And as we go along the risk spectrum, tumataas yung ating risk na pinapasok sa investments. So ideally, you start with low-risk assets first, and then you go up to high-risk assets. Now, for this episode, we'll focus on the different investments like bonds, balanced, and equity funds. Later on, we'll talk about stocks. Again, I reiterate that this higher risk, higher return assets are meant for longer tenor. So, medyo dun tayo sa medium term to long term, okay? Now, how do mutual funds and UITFs work? Basically, different investors, sabi ko nga parang cooperative, mag-aambag-ambag kayo ng different amounts. May it be 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, at yun, pagsasama-samahin into a fund. Kumbaga may isang basket, at merong isang professional, the fund manager, na mag-i-invest in your behalf. So, siya yung magde-decide when to buy, when to sell, at depende sa fund nyo. May it be a money market, bond, balance, or equity funds. At ang kagandahan nito, the total value ay paghahati-hatian equally and prorated. Kumbaga, this is the great equalizer nga. Why is it called the great equalizer? Kasi whether 1,000 ang ininvest mo or 100,000, pare-pareho kayo ng rate of return. Kung ang fund ay kumita ng 10%, lahat kayo kikita ng 10%. Siyempre, prorated on the amount of your investment. Now, ano ba yung mga different choices natin? Ano ba yung good? Ano ba yung best for me? Just to make it easy to remember, how do you pick the right investment? I want you to remember this word, SURE, which stands for size, horizon, objective, risk tolerance, and experience. Okay? So, in FundSmart, it makes it easier for you kasi if you click on FundSmart, this is the system, the platform, and if you click FundSmart, meron po dong option to take risk assessment. Yung risk assessment na yon, dadalhin ka sa client suitability assessment. And when you answer these questions, it will give you a recommendation, kumbaga testo, at malalaman mo kung anong klaseng investor ka. So, if you have a pen and paper right now with you, or your cell phones, I'm sure you have it with you now, pakibukas ang notes at sagutan po natin to sabay-sabay. I just want you to take the test now for you to find out kung anong klaseng investor kayo. So, let's start with question number 1. Okay, so question number 1. I am. Please answer A, B, C, or D. I am 65 years old and above. Or are you between 51 to 64? Letter C, between 36 to 50 years old. Or D, between 18 to 35 years old. Anong age nyo? Somehow, this estimates your objective and your horizon. Nasagutan na po ba? Okay, next question. A, B, C, or D lang po ah. Question number 2. What level of risk in relation to investment returns are you most comfortable with? So this somehow measures your risk tolerance. Are you okay with very low returns just to protect your principal? Ibig sabihin, kahit maliit ang returns, basta ayokong nagagalaw o bumababa yung amount of investment ko. Now, letter B, I can accept minimal risk for stable returns. Okay na konting risk kahit mababa ang returns. Letter C, moderate risk. Kahit bumaba, paminsan-minsan okay lang. Basta babawi. Or letter D, I am willing to take high risks to achieve the highest potential returns over the long term. Okay ka ba na kahit magalaw yung prices niya kasi alam mo naman na babawi siya over time? Okay, please answer A, B, C, or D. Okay, next question. How long are you willing to keep your money invested? So, willing ka ba na 1 year lang? O okay lang sa'yo kahit maiwan dyan ng mga 1 to 3 years, more than 3 years, but less than 5 years, or 5 years or more? Is this something that you're saving up for your retirement and you're still 40 years old now? So, meron ka pang 20 years to go. So, again, this measures your horizon. A, B, C, or D. Next question. How much do you know about investments? So what do you think this measures? Dun sa ating SHORE. S-H-O-R-E. It's E, experience. So how much do you know investments? A, is it minimal? Savings and time deposits ka lang? Low, I know basic money markets and basic bonds. Nag-RTB ka ba? Medium, I have existing mutual funds and UITFs, or high, I already trade stocks. A, B, C, or D. Okay, question number 5. How long have you been investing? Experience, again. Less than 1 year, B, 1 to 5 years, C, 6 to 10 years, or D, more than 10 years. Okay, nagsasagot po ba tayo? Okay, letter number 6. Less your regular expenses, how much of your money now can you invest? Okay, so this measures the size of your investment. Okay, less your expenses po, yung mga ginagastos nyo on a monthly basis. How much kung pwede nyong invest? Less than 10%, 11 to 20%, 21 to 30%, or D, more than 30%. So meaning you have more than enough money at pwede mong i-invest yung more than 30%. Okay, A, B, C, or D? Okay, last question. Okay, how would you feel if the value of your investment goes down in the short term? So parang ngayon, so if you invested last December, by today, more or less, nasa 20 to 30% down po ang inyong portfolio. If that happened to you, matatakot ka ba? Any principal loss is not acceptable to me. Letter A. B, I would be a little concerned. Tapos, babantayan mo yung investment mo, oh, bumababa na naman or tumataas na. C, it wouldn't be much of a concern as long as I still get positive returns eventually. Yung alam mo na temporary lang to at aakyat din yung value niya eventually. Or D, okay lang kasi I don't need the money now. I'm a long-term investor, so I wouldn't be concerned because I understand that high risk, high returns din siya over the long term. So is your answer A, B, C, or D? Okay, done? So I want you to tally your scores. For every A, give yourself 1 point. B, give yourself 2 points. C, 3 points. And D, 4 points. Okay? So if you got 0 to 7, you are a conservative investor. Ibig sabihin, your objective is principal protection and security. Mas importante sa'yo ang peace of yung mahimbing na tulog kesa mas mataas na kita. If you are that kind of investor, I suggest that you stick with money market funds first. It means that your horizon is just 1 year or less. In FundSmart, there are 4 money market funds, and these are the PhilAm Managed Income Fund, ALFM Money Market, Sun Life, and FirstMetroSec Learn Money Market. You'll see that 1 year return is about 3%. Okay, so this is definitely higher than your average savings account or even your time deposits. At ang kagandahan ng money market is that para lang siyang specialized time deposit na very stable ang returns. Very seldom po siya na bumababa kasi nga ang laman lang niya is time deposit and short-term securities. So this is the safest investment that you can get into, especially for first-timers. Now, if your score is between 8 to 10 points, are a moderately conservative investor. If you are this type of investor, ibig sabihin, okay lang sa'yo, minimal risk, but minimal returns, okay? And if you are this kind of investor, you can invest in both money market and bond funds. And usually, ang investment horizon mo is 1 to 3 years. In FundSmart, these are the top bond funds. You'll see that in the past 3 years, kumita siya ng mga 12% for the past 3 years. So again, it's still higher than your inflation rate. Diba? So ibig sabihin, in the past 3 years, kumita siya ng more or less 3 or 4% per annum. So again, it's definitely better than your time deposit. Next, if your score is 11 to 15 points, you are a balanced or a moderate investor. Meaning to say that you want growth and yet security in your investments. So moderate risk, moderate returns. Ang bagay po sa inyo would be balanced funds. Okay? When I say balanced fund, it doesn't need to be 50% bonds, 50% stocks. Pag sinabi natin balance, basta mix lang siya. The stock portion give you the capital appreciation, yung taas ng kita, while the bonds portion give you the stable income. Bakit ba may stable income sa bonds? Ang bonds po kasi parang utang lang yan. Kapag may nangutang, 'di ba? Babayaran siya ng interest. Yung interest na yon, it usually comes either quarterly or semi-annual or yearly. Yung kita na yon, yun yung napupunta sa mga bond investors. Kaya when you invest in a balanced fund, meron kang stocks component, meron ka ring bond component. Okay? So, next, if you got 16 to 21 points, you are a moderately aggressive investor. So in our risk spectrum sa FundSmart, that's number 4, risk rating number 4. It means that you are after capital growth. Gusto mong tumaas yung value ng investment mo, and you are after potentially higher returns over time. So ang ating investment horizon here is around 5 years or more. Okay, so long-term pa rin siya. Every time we invest in stocks, equity funds, ang ating expectation dapat is that hindi mo makukuha yung returns na gusto mo in the next 1 or 2 years. You have to be prepared to stay invested for 5 years or more to get the highest possible returns. Now, the index and dividend equity funds are the, kumbaga, mas conservative na stock investment. Bakit? Kasi these are basically invested in blue chip companies. Okay, so these are the top corporations in the Philippines and those that give out dividends or regular income. Ang dividends po, ito po yung equivalent ng interest sa mga bonds or kahit sa ating mga time deposits. So, meron lang mga select companies, select stocks na nagbibigay ng dividendo. At itong mga equity funds na to, you'll see it in their names. Kunwari, Phil Equity Dividend Yield Fund or Sun Life Index Equity Fund. So, if you want to get into stocks pero hindi pa kayo totally comfortable, you can start with these types of stocks, investment funds. Okay, so dividend and index equity funds. Lahat po yan, usually blue chip names lang. Now, if your score is 22 to 28 points, you are an aggressive investor. So meaning to say, definitely ang investment horizon mo greater than 5 years and you are after the highest possible return over the long term. So you don't mind the ups and downs kasi alam mo na eventually magre-recover din siya. Ang kaibahan lang nito sa dividend and equity funds is that if you are going to invest in, let's say, the alpha opportunity funds, yung mga ganon, or other actively managed funds, it means that these funds are highly dependent on the skill of the fund manager. Kasi yung fund manager na yung mamimili ng stocks. Sila yung mamimili ng sectors, sila ang magde-decide kung gaano kalaki ang i-invest dun sa mga investment na yon. I always get questions na, pwede bang ako ang mamili ng stocks ko dun sa aking equity fund? The answer to that is no. Kaya nga po, merong professional na mag-i-invest for you. Ang kailangan nyo lang i-figure out is that, is this the right fund for me? Komportable ba ako sa type ng fund na ito? Ang good news po, ang kagandahan ngayong panahon na to, especially for first-timers, I cannot reiterate enough that this is the best time to start investing. All the stock prices now are 20-30% at a discount. So kumbaga, kung punta ka sa mall, kita mo lahat naka-sale. So syempre, ikaw, lalo na mga mommies dyan, mga girls, pag 4-letter word na sale, na-excite tayong bumili. Kasi alam mo na you are getting these things at a bargain. So ngayon po, this is one of the best times to start investing. Sabi nga, if you've heard the phrase na the time to buy is when there is blood in the streets, eto na po yun, okay? But keep in mind that if you are going to invest in equity funds right now, be prepared to stay invested over the long term. Not 1 year, not 2 years, over the long term. So make sure that these are the funds that you wouldn't need anytime soon. So again, just to reiterate, kapag money market po, straight line lang yan, para lang yung time deposit. Okay? Low risk, low return. Kapag bonds, medyo magalaw. At ang returns niya, mas mataas, higher than money market. And when you invest in equities or stocks, sobrang magalaw po niyan. But I would suggest po, don't focus on the ups and downs. Focus on your beginning and your end. Among these three, if you are looking at a 5-year horizon or more, equity funds still give out the highest potential return. So it means that the longer you stay invested, the greater the chance of a positive return. And right now, we are at this point, this X point. We coming from a high of 8,000 in the stock market. Right now, nasa 5,600. It even went down to 4,000 level. So this is a good time to buy. So it will just be a matter of time bago po siya umakyat ulit. So I suggest, huwag na po kayong mag-delay. If these are funds that you wouldn't need in the next 5 years or more, put some in equity funds. Now again, just to reiterate, sure. Can you say it with me? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng sure ulit? S is size, H is horizon, O is objective, R is risk tolerance, E is experience. Objective, para saan ba to? Is this something that you need in 1 year? Then go for money market. If this is something meant for your retirement, you still have time, then you can go for higher risk, higher return assets. Just the benefits of investing in funds. Number one, you get professional management. So, meaning to say, they get access to markets. Normally, when you invest in, let's say, the stock exchange index, if you want to invest in all 30 stocks, you would need around 100,000 pesos. But when you invest through mutual funds or UITFs, it becomes cheaper. Kasi kahit 1,000 lang, pwede ka na mag-start. But you still get to invest in the same stocks. You get automatic diversification. Kasi nga, because it's in a fund, required po sila ng SEC or ng BSP to invest in more than one investment. So, ito na yung putting your eggs in different baskets. They are the ones doing that for you. It's easy also. Why? Kasi po yung prices, yung nakikita nyong NAVPS, Net Asset Value per share, neto na po yan ng taxes and fees. Okay? Yun ay, wala na kayong babayarang sales load, taxes, capital gains, PSE charges, lahat na yon nabawas. And the good thing, of course, is you don't need to monitor your investment. Kasi nga, may fund manager na gagawa nun for you full-time. Yun yung trabaho nila. They don't do anything but to monitor the market. So they may be in a better position to decide on which investments to buy and when. Okay? It's affordable. Like we said, as low as 1,000 pesos, pwede ka nang mag-start now. And withdrawable anytime. Para lang din siyang savings account. You can withdraw it anytime. There are a holding period, pero pwede mo pa rin siyang withdraw. Meron lang early redemption fee. And the last benefit that I would like to highlight is that there is compounding, yung power of compounding. Is anyone familiar with compounding? Okay, basically, compounding is interest earning interest. Kumbaga, kapag merong kinita, ito, niro-roll over mo pati yung kinita. So yung pera mo ngayon, lumago with interest, hindi mo siya nilabas, hindi mo siya withdraw, lalago ulit siya ng interest year after year after year. In terms of illustration, let's say nagtanim ka ng puno. Kapag ganito siya kataas, puputulin mo na ba siya? Maybe not. If you wait a little longer, it will grow taller. Ready for harvest na ba to? Maybe some, okay na, pwede na, pagkakitaan. But if you wait a little more, lalago siya ng ganito kalaki. And you will be able to sell this even at a higher price. So same thing in compounding. Time is your friend in compounding. Ito po kung narinig nyo na yung CAGR, CAGR, Compounded Annual Growth Rate. So every year kumikita, Kapag iniwan mo dyan, kikita at kikita siya. So I suggest you really start early. Do not delay. If you're working now, put even a little. Okay? Isa pa pala, I just remembered. In stocks, lagi nilang minimension yung 8K rule. Kasi nga, merong every transaction that you do, there is that transaction fee na equal to 20 pesos minimum broker's commission. In mutual funds, wala pong ganon. So you can as low as 1,000 and you pay the same taxes and charges as all the other investors in that fund. Whether you invest 1,000 or whether you invest 100,000, you all pay the same percentage, the same rate. Okay, now let's see again. Ito yung sa example ng fund profile sa FundSmart. Okay, so makikita nyo, a provider there, its a sample is Sun Life Asset Management. So it's professionally managed. In this case, it's the team of Sun Life Asset Management. Next, diversified. You'll see there also the top holdings. Makikita nyo, since this is a bond fund, ang laman lang niya would be treasury notes, commercial paper, corporate bonds. Again, we said na, ano ba itong bonds? Ito yung mga instruments that give out regular income. Kaya makikita nyo, even now, positive pa rin siya, even with the market downturn. Kasi merong interest na sumasalo sa value ng investment na yon. And next, what else? It's easy. Ito yung NAV-PS, Net Asset Value Per Share. Yung 3.1136 na yan, neto na yan. Wala nang sales load. You don't have to pay any more taxes. So, next is it's affordable. As low as 1,000. Yung susunod nyo, 1,000 na rin. Withdrawable anytime. So this is an example of a fund with a holding period, 180 days. But let's say, kailanganin niyo yung fund on the 30th day and positive na naman siya. Wala pong pumipigil sa inyo na i-withdraw yan. Kasi mutual funds and UITFs are required to be able to give redemptions anytime. Okay? It's also, you'll also see here na yung chart niya, if you click on the annualized part doon sa fund profile, you will be given the per annum rate. So in example, kung bond fund na to, kumita siya ng 4.5% in the past 3 years. That's 4.5% per year. And you'll see the graph here. Makikita nyo from 2017, down siya, umakyat, bumaba, umaakyat. So ganito po yung bond funds. So, hindi siya mas magalaw kesa stocks, pero mas magalaw siya than money market. But again, like I said, don't look at the ups and downs. Look at your beginning and your end. Even now, nabagsak ang market, positive pa rin siya if you invested 3 years ago. Okay? Now, ano ba yung mga funds na nasa FundSmart ngayon? So right now, we have 6 of the top mutual fund companies in the Philippines. We have PhilEquity, ALFM, FAMI, PhilAm, Atram, and Sun Life. Okay? And again, you can start with just 1,000 pesos. Ang kagandaan niya, since it's online, there's no sales load. So zero sales load lang siya. Again, we want to reiterate, if you want to start investing, you have to change your mindset. So, pag natanggap nyo na po yung income nyo, magtabi na kayo kagad for your savings and investments. Ang matira, yun na lang po yung ating gastusin. So, we have to be intentional about these things, okay, if we really want to start investing. Now, are mutual funds and UITFs right for you? Yes, if you're not yet a good stock picker. Yes, if you're busy and you don't want to monitor your investments. And yes, if you think that you are a potentially emotional investor, yung hindi mo kaya munang mag-decide when to buy and when to sell, then you can start with UITFs. Now, another analogy. Kapag stocks po, kayo ang driver. Kapag mutual funds or UITFs, you have a driver. Pag stocks, you have full control of your route and destination. Kapag mutual funds, merong yung driver mo, yun yung nagde-decide saang ruta ka dadalhin. And pag stocks, it requires more of your attention and focus. Whereas in mutual funds, you don't have to monitor. It requires less attention and focus. So if you're experienced, you can go into direct stocks. But if you're a beginner and you want a professional to do it for you can start with mutual funds and UITFs first. Now, just quick lang, I mentioned already that I'm a daughter of an OFW. I also worked in Qatar for a few years and now I'm a solo parent. My first investment was a UITF 10 years ago. And medyo pa sa akin yung time na yon kasi at that time, ang minimum pa was 10,000. But it turned out to be one of the best decisions I've made. Because there was a time na wala akong pang-enroll and yung kita nung investment na yun ang ginamit ko sa pang-enroll. So I want to challenge you guys na maliit lang 1,000. You can start now and start building your wealth. Especially for OFWs, hindi natin alam hanggang kailan tayo may trabaho, hindi natin alam kung hanggang kailan tayo may kita. So now that we're earning good money, it's only a good decision to put a little sa mga investments. And you can start with mutual funds and UITFs. What I want to say is that it's okay not to be an expert. Ako, I started investing um, 10 years ago. I didn't know anything about investing. Ang alam ko lang that I chose a good fund manager and I gave that minimum investment. It's okay not to be an expert because there are professionals who will help you there. Okay. And if you lack the knowledge and experience, you can start with money market, then go up to bonds and balance funds, equity funds, go into stocks. Wag na wag po kayong magsa-start sa stocks if you are a first timer. We really encourage you to start from the basics and go up the investment ladder. Okay? Wag po tayong masilaw sa pwede. So we have to make it gradual from low risk to high risk. Okay? And if you want to start, the basic requirements lang is a TIN number, passport, and visa, proof of your registered address, and your proof of bank account. And for the OFWs who will start investing, we have a 100 peso investment credits per 10,000 or $200 invested. So these are 4 accounts that you open between April 15 to May 31, 2020. Okay, so we look forward to receiving your applications. If you have questions, please feel free to email us at ofwdesk at firstmetrosec.com.ph and please like and subscribe to our social media channels. So thank you very much and we'll see you in the next webinars.